just occasionally, and just now I put a date on the previous recording, and I started to put, instead of 2024, gosh, that seems strange to me to say it now, I was starting to write 19, because of course I've lived most of my life in the 20th century, the 1900s, from 1947 onwards, which is twice as long in the 20th century as in so far the 21st. Now, ostensibly this is just, oh, that's an interesting mistake, fancy me doing that. Do you see how in this case my being, in our being, there is this extraordinary bedrock accumulation of experience, narrowed to this particular life? Yes. You know, if we are a reincarnation of many experienced lives before, for most of us, just about all of that is not seen, is not apparent. Only the current, if you like, mind's memories. And that accumulation of being is still there to influence the present. So, you know, I'm suddenly thinking of, oh, that's the way my dad coughs when I do a certain thing. Or, oh, this mannerism is just like so-and-so. I know how he feels now. And that person, that's so-and-so, is someone who is in my fairly, if you like, immediate past, immediate to my life here since birth here. Now, most of the time I'm not aware of most of my immediate, you know, last, in my case, 76 years. I don't have to hand all the details of it by the remotest means. And yet, in some ways, it seems to be there and can crop up, and I suddenly remember something that I hadn't been aware of since perhaps when even it happened. But it's still there. It's as if you like, it's in the Akashic record, and I could almost at random have some access to it at any time, because that is my past. Now, if we have experienced much before we came into this world, then that may be in such record as well. And know it or know it not, it be influencing precisely who we are, what we value, and how we act and react. Much of how we act and react is indeed a react, not well thought out in the light of our perceived current values, but a knee-jerk reaction to that which happens around us. And we have to live with the consequence. And we might very earnestly desire to change our propensity to make certain actions because we increasingly value that which would warrant actions that were quite different. So we are leaning upon our past, what we have become. We're leaning it to move in the direction of what we wish to be. And our hope is that we choose to wish to be that which is beneficial and a blessing. The security of which we turn to God, our God, namely the personification of what we truly seem to value now. But what we value now is, of course, in great measure inherited from the past, viewing our present experiences and attempting to adjust accordingly. That sums up, I think, what living is. And we choose to believe it is to achieve a perfection of living in heaven eternally, though we can't quite conceive in much detail of what we hope for by such a purpose. But the lack of such a purpose seems to be inevitable disaster, and is inconsistent with this incredible drive that life has to continue surviving. What I'm saying here, it seems, is the absolute pivotal necessity of the focusing on self. Else we would not survive long enough in childhood here to gain this excellence, if you like, this graduating into the kingdom of heaven. The child has to have this great dominant will to live, self, itself to live. And all life strives and struggles for survival. And if it doesn't, it vanishes extremely quickly. You know, the child that won't eat, we start to panic about. The person who doesn't want to live. Oh my goodness, what can we do about this? For we project and focus, if they don't live, well, it's just death. And we are concerned that it's not death into heaven, but into either total annihilation or continual deterioration until death comes. So we are blessed with this paranoid self-interest, as we might see it. It is true that we will not be like this in heaven, but it also seems to be very true that it's extremely necessary to get to heaven to get through this learning state, this life in the transitory universe, this classroom, preparing us for glory. Else glory will not come. So we do not despise self-interest. We only know in our growing wisdom that that is not how the kingdom of heaven is. And with this, if you like, enlightenment, maybe for want of a better word, if you don't agree with this thesis. But with this enlightenment, we hold to the kingdom of heaven within us. We know what we truly value, but we also know what pragmatic necessity demands of us in being here until we are perfected, complete, in which case staying here is no longer a necessity, and we embrace very willingly leaving for the kingdom of heaven. Bless you, and you are blessed, thanks to the grace and the goodness and the love of your God, whom you find the longer you're here in this world, is the more like the only true God that could ever be. Our wonderful heavenly Dad. And that is our hope, and without it we progress very, very slowly. So slow it doesn't look like progression, and something that wistfully may take a million incarnations. In that sense, religion comes to rescue us, to give us teaching, shortcuts to graduation, how to study, how to purpose the goal that is so desirable, so right, so much the reason for us being here. We may learn by hearing, or by seeing, observing how things are and turn out around us in this classroom, this learning situation, where we start to make sense of the chaos, what seems to be chaos and why it's there, and why we have uncertainty, and why we long for purpose, and why we are so selfish, so self-interested, despite wanting to be a pretty nice person. Person of value. So we choose what we want to achieve and learn accordingly, and adjust then what we choose and why we choose it. Our values hone in on that which is eternal by a constant experience of the transitory, the experience of finding out that which is not eternal and adjusting our sights accordingly. So our indomitable self-interest is a blessing here in this classroom of children like ourselves. You can choose to listen to the teacher and gain such as you do. You may worship the teacher and find it was the wrong teacher, and he didn't know as much about his subject as we thought. So you start to long for the best teacher, which is defined to be the Holy Spirit, of course, the one who speaks only of God. And you would prefer that he was always with you and distinct from other teachers so that you knew. And so he is, he dwells in you, or you may surmise such. And only finally be led by your own inner judgment. Then you play out such in the classroom, in play, and see if it works. You know, you're the kiddie with a sack of bricks, different wooden shapes, and you think, I'll build a building. And you put 3 things on top one another and they don't stay up. Oh, I seem to need a bigger base in order to build greater height. So you build a big base and then a smaller floor on top of it. That seems to work until something else goes wrong. That isn't in balance, or it's too high for the base. And you learn. And that's what we do in the rest of life, until we've learnt it. Either all or enough to graduate. We would like to graduate with honours. And in some universities, well, they only do honours degrees because what's the point in graduating without being the best? A necessary standard for the kingdom of heaven. Okay, that's as far as we can go, isn't it? And far enough. Thank you, Dad.